Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a lovely day here in suburban Chicago. I am walking through the commercial part of town on my way over to the library, and I thought I'd start recording early. But so you're getting like music coming out of shops and stuff in the background. Hopefully that's not too disruptive. So coming off the train today, I thought I would talk a little bit about some films I've been watching and think about a theme storm or adaptation storm. I don't remember what it's called. Occasionally I have done this in the past where I watch a film or a couple of films and I think about what aspects of the film would make for a good game and try to talk about that. So I've picked out four films that I've watched recently. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them and then think about what aspect of that film might make a good game. Think about a game, either a game to pair with the film, or think about a game that I would create based on that film. So either I'll do a pairing or an adaptation. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to be the horror film board Game Sommelier. So the idea is I'm going to talk about 4 different films that I've seen recently, talk a little bit about what makes them special, and then I'm going to come up with a game that you would play to accompany this film as a kind of 1-2 punch or an evening of enjoyment. So let's just jump into it. So the first game I want to talk about is The Babadook. So The Babadook is a film about a woman who is a widow and raising a child that was born the same day that her husband died. So the child has never known his father, and built into the story is this mother is struggling. She doesn't have a lot of support network, played by the incomparable Essie Davis, who I didn't even recognize till the end of the movie because she looks so different from the character that she played in the Miss Fisher mysteries that I didn't recognize her till we got to the end and it said Essie Davis, and I was like, what? And I went back and looked, and sure enough, yeah, it was her. So in the game, or in the movie, her child is sort of afraid. He's got an active imagination. He's sort of afraid of monsters, and he finds this children's book. It's unclear where it came from, but it's sort of a horror book about an evil spirit that will get into your house and cause you to do terrible things, and there's nothing you can do to get rid of it. And the spirit is called the Babadook. It's like a creepy man with a top hat and shaggy hair, and it's rendered in a very creepy way. The cinematography is really clever in that they use the principle of imagination over imagery. So they show you very little of the monster and they have you worry about where it is, and they give you just glimpses of it instead of actually showing it, which works really well. So the film is an excellent metaphor for depression. When you see the film, you realize that it's about undiagnosed mental illness or depression, and that part of the end of the film has to do with thinking about how that metaphor plays out. It's a grim but important story that challenges you to think about what's important and think about the different ways that life experiences are represented to different people and by different people. Given the heavy and emotional themes at the heart of The Babadook, even though it's scary, I thought I would pair a game that's equally sort of emotionally dramatic. That would be Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. Now, Holding On is not my favorite game as far as a game goes, but it's a really interesting experience. In Holding On, you play nurses at a hospice facility in which there's a character who is dying from an advanced form of cancer, and your job is to make him as comfortable as you can using palliative care, while also trying to help him solve his memory and emotional problems by helping him work through dramatic memories that reveal the life of the character. And like the mother in Babadook, this character Billy Kerr has made a lot of mistakes, and he's, built a lot of harm in his life due to not being able to resolve these issues. And so a big part of the game over the course of 5 episodes is to try and resolve these memories so that he can be at peace when he passes away. It's a really dark story, as is the Babadook, but I think that it would make a good pairing if you're interested in stories that are going to explore that deep emotional resonance. All right, so that's Babadook and Holding On: The Life of Billy Kerr. All right, the second film I watched, this one is called Oculus. And this is both a scary and dramatic movie, but also a movie about a haunted mirror. So in Oculus, there is a young man who, there was a family dynamic, like a family murder when he was a child. And he ends up going to an asylum because he killed his father. And of course, the game and the film, it comes out that he killed his father because his father had killed his mother, and his father was mad. And in the movie, it turns out that his father was mad because of this evil mirror that they had in their house. When the boy gets out of the asylum, he's like 20, and his older sister, who's like 25, has basically spent her life planning how they're going to destroy this mirror in the movie. And so when he gets out, then she wants to destroy the mirror. Of course, he's been convinced the mirror isn't haunted, and it is haunted, and it's creepy, and blah, blah, blah. So the movie is really interesting. It's very tense. And a big part of the movie is that you don't know what's happening for much of the movie. I mean, you can tell that something is happening, but a big part of what's going on in the game is that in the film is that the mirror is deceiving the characters about the reality of what's around them. It's making them see horrific images, but it's also playing with their sense of what's true or not. And they're trying to figure out how to document and then destroy it, while it is trying to save itself by tricking them into making moves incorrectly, doing things that they wouldn't otherwise do. It's making them misperceive things. So with all of that deception, it feels like that's the answer for the game that would go with Oculus. And that's Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. Now, this is not a horror game, of course, and it's not a game about family trauma or haunted mirrors. Instead, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong is a social deduction game in which one character is a murderer, or one player is a murderer, one player is an investigator, and the other players are a variety of witnesses and other investigators. And the goal is to find out which character is the murderer, while the murderer is trying to mislead and trick people about what's going on. It's similar to The Resistance or to Secret Hitler or any number of other games where you have a bad actor mixed in with the good actors, and the good people are trying to suss out what the nefarious person is doing. And while that's not entirely the same as a haunted mirror, because we know the haunted mirror is evil, I think that the central part of what makes Oculus pretty creepy is that they can never really trust what they're seeing because the mirror screws with their perceptions. And it feels like that's what's at the heart of what's going on in most of these social deduction games, but particularly well in Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. So that's going to be my pairing for the creepy movie about a haunted mirror, Oculus. As an aside, the main actor in Oculus is Karen Gillan, who I knew mostly from Doctor Who, but also from a number of other films, including some of the recent Marvel Universe films. She plays the bald-headed blue lady, daughter of Thanos, in Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Avengers Endgame, I think. So that's Karen Gillan. Oculus, go with Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. All right, the next film I want to talk about is a German movie, or it might be Norwegian. I think it's Norwegian, actually, or Dutch movie that I watched recently called The Columnist. Could be German. I confess, I don't know. I don't know what country it's from or what language they were speaking. I think they were speaking German, actually, so it's probably German. But it felt Dutch because they're riding bicycles all the time. I don't know. That's probably not fair. I guess I don't know enough about our European friends. Any European listeners, can you let me know what country The Columnist takes place in? I guess I could go look it up, but I'm walking. I can't look it up. Anyway, and The Columnist is sort of a dark comedy in which the main character is a somewhat controversial writer op-ed writer and features writer for a prominent newspaper. She writes a column a couple times a week, and her column tends to get a variety of responses, including lots of regressive jerks online responding to any kind of feminist commentary that she has. Well, she's also supposed to be writing a novel, and she is having trouble figuring out what she wants to write about the novel. And in the end, this is all sort of revealed in the premise of the film. So basically she starts murdering people who've been saying mean things about her online. And then she gets writing inspiration from that. It's, like I said, a dark comedy. Involves some of the vengeance stuff and a particularly dark kind of murderousness that is enjoyable to watch because the people she's killing are horrible. But ultimately, that's a morality tale, I guess, a dark one. So as we're thinking about, part of what is interesting is that she comes up with all these different ways to kill the people that she's murdering, which don't seem particularly, it's not like Saw where there's poetic justice in the murdering, but she does kill each person in a slightly different way. And so that makes me think of the party game from David Malky, I think that's his name, The Machine of Death. Now, The Machine of Death is a party game set around a short story collection, which comes from an idea from a David Malky comic in which there's a machine called the Machine of Death that will sample a prick of blood from your finger and tell you how you're going to die. It won't tell you when you're going to die, but it'll tell you the cause of your death. Problem is, like the oracles of ancient Greece, the machine has a wicked sense of humor. So it might say boating accident, when in fact you die because a boat comes off of its trailer on the freeway and crashes into your car. Or it might say old age because an old man falls asleep at the wheel and kills you with his car. For example, not all the deaths are car crash related, but you get what I'm saying. So in the game based around this idea, Machine of Death, it's a game of creative assassination. In this game, you are a team of assassins working in the world where the Machine of Death exists. In it, you have a target that you're trying to kill, and you have gotten a hold of their prediction card. And that tells you the method of death that they will encounter. It's a storytelling game in which you and your group have to come up with a variety of different ideas for setting up a murder of the person you're supposed to kill based around the idea of making their prediction card come true. Because if their prediction card is not going to come true, you can't kill them. Like, you can't just shoot somebody if their prediction card says they're going to drown, because it just won't work. The fate will intervene. And so the game is about kind of creative storytelling based on a series of prompts. There's a little bit of dice rolling to sort of see how successful your plan is, and you have to kind of change things at the last moment. It's a pretty silly game, not deep. It's definitely in the storytelling game genre, and actually one I've played a couple times I enjoyed, but it's on my sell pile, so it's not a game I'm super committed to. That said, it's an interesting idea, and I think would make a nice pairing with a viewing of The Columnist, in which the main character is driven to murder, and she does it in a variety of amusing ways. So that's my third pairing, Columnist. Finally, my fourth pairing, or my fourth film that I want to talk about today, and my pairing is Absentia. Now, I encountered this film because somebody in the Secret Cabal Guild over on Board Game Geek asked how come there aren't very many good H.P. Lovecraft inspired films. And there was a conversation about that, but then there was also a number of recommendations of films that seemed to do that to varying degrees of quality. And one of the recommendations was Absentia, which is a film I went and looked at. Basically, in Absentia, there's a woman whose husband has been missing for 7 years, and she's just filed the paperwork to get his death certificate because he's declared missing in absentia. And as the film goes along, he comes back, and horrific stuff ensues, and there's a Lovecraftian element to it. So obviously, I think the game that you would engage to play this would be my favorite Lovecraftian game, Arkham Horror the card game. Like Absentia, Arkham Horror the card game starts with a sort of small issue, a small thing that you're investigating. A riot happened at a play, or there was a break-in at a museum, and then this more elaborate story unfolds that you have to work really hard to fight, and toward the end of the game, you are battling complex and dangerous creatures with every tool at your disposal, doing your best to get rid of them before they get rid of you, just as in the film. So while the theme of the film does not carry over very easily to the game, I think that the idea of the film would make a nice pairing with Absentia. So what films have you seen lately, and what games do you think would make a nice pairing? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and share your ideas on the Board Game Geek Guild thread. You can send me a direct message, Wombat929 on Board Game Geek, or send me an email, brendan@rattleboxgames.com. I'd love to hear what pairings you think there should be, or perhaps you have a better idea for one of the films I've mentioned. Head over and let me know. Well, that's about it for me today. The snow is coming down and it's been a lovely walk, but I'm home now, so I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks for joining me today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.